Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners. Today's contest is the contest for deciding the third and fourth places of the Kwame Nkrumah International Debate Competition, the KNIDC. All too soon, we're drawing down the curtains on this exciting competition. It has been electrifying, insightful, and so amazing. I, for one, have totally enjoyed every bit of these amazing moments. My name is Nana Kwame Apiankansa, your coordinator for this evening. And also coordinating with me is the beautiful and ever eloquent Miss Samura Yahaya.
The KNIDC has been in existence for the past 5 years. This year's theme is Africa, in Unity We Shall Stand. Our debate competition this evening takes the Lincoln Douglas approach. This format is named after the famous 1858 Senate race in Illinois between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. It basically involves two debaters, one arguing for and the other against a resolution voted on by able judges. It focuses basically on the conflicting values of vital social and philosophical issues. The most important concept then becomes first choice, also commonly referred to as clash. So the judges are required to select between two mutually exclusive propositions. This year's winner receives a sponsored trip to Dubai.
Wow. On our panel this evening, we have Dr. Abdul Kader Ameyal, our Policy Judge 1. For his educational background, Dr. Abdul Kader Ameyal has a BSc degree in economics from the Russian State Hydrometeorological University. He has a master's degree in management at the Graduate School of Management, St. Petersburg State University in Russia. He holds an MBA degree from the University of Cologne in Germany. He has a PhD in managerial economics, the Graduate School of Management, St. Petersburg State University. He has certificates in law, philosophy, politics, psychology, marketing, business management from Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Cornell, Princeton, Bocconi, amongst many others. He has 7 publications in top journals and 2 forthcoming in the Journal of Modern African Studies, Cambridge University Press. For his work experience, he's a business consultant at the Gazprom Energy Holding in Russia. He's also a business consultant for DHL Consulting in Germany. He's an investor relations manager at the Galactica Space in Russia. He's been an assistant lecturer in international business strategy at the Graduate School of Management, St. Petersburg State University. He's also a reviewer at the Journal of African Business. And he has been a KNIDC judge for the past 4 years. And he also served as past vice president of NUGS-RUSSIA some years back. Our policy judge too is in the person of Mr. Patrick J.A. Popolampu Dove, a medical student at the Volgograd State Medical University in Russia. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee for the 2015-2016 academic year. He was secretary also for the JC, which means the Judiciary Committee for the 2016-2017 academic year. He served as NUGS-RUSSIA's vice president for 2017-2018 academic year, and also as president of NUGS-RUSSIA for 2018-2019 academic year. Currently, he serves as the Media and Communications Secretary of the Global Union of Veterans Scholarships. And he was a past winner of the KNIDC back in 2016.
Our classical judge for this evening is Mr. Paul Bukovinian Kojo Edem. He's in Stavropol State Medical University. He has a BSc in chemistry from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, former and current speaker of the Royal Senate of NUGS-RUSSIA. Next is our floor judge, and she is Miss Melanie Richards Tucker, an educator, early years consultant, and currently publishing children's book. She is currently based in UK and has worked in the UAE. training teachers, and as the head of early years schools. Our primary judge is Mr. Anthony Kunedu Yabua. He is a graduate of Volgograd State University in Russia. He has a master's degree in mathematics. He served as deputy chairman for the debate committee of NUGS-RUSSIA for 2019-2020 academic year. Mr. Anthony Kunedu Yabua is the current chairman for the debate committee of NUGS-RUSSIA.
Thank you, panel of judges, for making time to be with us this evening. We can't be more grateful.
Once again, listeners, this is the context for deciding the third and fourth places of the Kwame Nkrumah International Debate Competition. This evening, the resolution before the House reads as:
Neocolonialism still exists in Africa. And for the motion, we have Mr. Prince Boateng. Against the motion, Mr. Elijah Gamson. Welcome, gentlemen, and kindly introduce yourselves. I'll start with Mr. Prince Boateng.
Thank you very much. My name is Boateng Prince from Bukovinian State Medical University, Chernivtsi, Ukraine. I'm for the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Elijah Gamson.
My name is Elijah Gamson from Kharkiv National Medical University, Kharkiv, Ukraine.
All right, thank you and welcome once again, gentlemen. Contestants, I believe we're abreast with the rules of the competition, having gone through the preliminary stages up to the contest. So let's set things in motion. Kindly remember to say the word resolve before any submission. This helps our timekeeper be more accurate. So we'll begin with the affirmative constructive. Mr. Prince Boateng, please, are you ready?
Yes.
You kindly have 6 minutes, so you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Resolved. Honorable panel of judges, our guest audience, I'm here this evening to debate on the motion Neocolonialism Still Exists in Africa. And I'm glad to say that I am debating for the motion. In place of colonialism as the main instrument of imperialism, we have today neocolonialism, which, like colonialism, is an attempt to export the social conflicts of the capitalist countries. The result of neocolonialism is that foreign capital is used for the exploitation rather than for the development of the less developed parts of the world. Investment under neocolonialism increases rather than decreases the gap between the rich and the poor countries. This is a quotation by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, which was said in his book, Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism. Panel of judges, neocolonialism is a practice of using economics, globalization, cultural imperialism, and conditional aid to influence a country instead of the previous colonial methods to direct military control or indirect political control. This results in an undue degree of political control or spiraling debt obligations. Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana, coined the term, which appeared in the 1963 preamble of the Organization of the African Union Chapter. Panel of judges, I guess audience, since the phenomenon we are talking about was coined by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and it is associated with him, I would implore you to permit me when I mention his name a lot, since we need to get the understanding from his perspective. That has been so till now, and I would like to crave your indulgence on that. Neocolonialism is a worse form of imperialism for those who practice it. It means power without responsibility, and for those who suffer it, it is exploitation without redress, he said. Predominantly, neocolonialism has noticed in economics, although this economic exploitation is cloaked by the political and cultural exploitation. Scholarly said, after the Second World War, the colonies were acquiring independences politically, but the imperialist countries didn't give those states economic independence. In such a degree, the newly acquired independent countries must have to depend on her colonial country. Economy is a driving force for the development of any country. Without economic development, no countries can achieve development. In the African context, imperialist countries had applied economic tools as an arm to dominate the newly independent countries. In fact, many argue that the condition in Africa is far worse today than it was at the end of colonialism under the European nations in the 1960s and 1970s. Observing the living conditions of the rapidly growing population, it is apparent that this is actually the case. Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, the African continent has the natural resources and commercial power to become the richest continent in the world, but oppression, bribery, and exploitation by the West hinder its development. Let us look at how France is siphoning money from African countries. The 14 African states declared independence from France. These are Benin, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Niger, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Guinea-Bissau, Equatorial Guinea, Chad, Congo, Brazzaville, and Gabon. When these states declared independence from France, the French government put all the former colonies in a group called compulsory solidarities. This meant that those independent states would need to pay 65% of foreign currency reserves to the French treasury and 20% for their financial liabilities. So each colony has only 15% left to use for their own money. In March 2008, former French President Jacques Chirac said, without Africa, France will slide down into the rank of a third world power. A clear indication why they have resorted to indirect ways to exploit these former colonies of theirs without ensuring their equal development. Foreign trade is just one of the ways that fuel labor exploitation. This was shown by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who has said that unfair trade deals are a device for entrenching neocolonialism. West Africa is known for producing 1/3 of the world's cocoa, mostly in West Africa, including Ivory Coast and Ghana, but most of it is obtained with unfair trade deals and child slavery. A reporter and investigator spent 15 days in Ivory Coast and found out that child labor is still profound in cocoa farms, even after 20 years of pledging to eradicate child labor. As a consequence, the well-known brands Hershey, Mars, and Nestle could not guarantee that any of their chocolates were produced without child labor. This is according to the Washington Post in 2019. Ethiopia's Arabica coffee is the biggest exporter in Africa. Then comes Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Cote d'Ivoire. But it is said to be those coffee farmers in Ethiopia sell up to $4 for a kilogram of cocoa, while large coffee corporations make up to $200 for each kilogram of cocoa. This means foreign investors and corporations like Starbucks make millions as a result of slave labor. This is according to the medium.com. Africa is full of profitable, non-renewable natural resources that the West always wants to exploit. Mark Curtis, a journalist, released a report on the Britain's scramble for Africa's energy and resource.
Mr. Prince, thank you so much. Unfortunately, your time is up. Thank you. Now to cross-examination. Please remember that in questioning, keep your answers, your questions argumentative and specific, yes or no preferably. And then in answering, kindly keep your answers also short and specific. Let us endeavor to not interrupt each other during questioning and answering. You can decide not to answer questions you see as irrelevant to your argument. So we'll move on to cross-examination by the negative constructive Mr. Elijah Gamson. Please, are you ready?
All right. Okay. Mr. Prince, you made mention of France stifling money from French countries, which is 55% and 20% for financial liabilities. Do you know that which source did you get these figures from? And I want you to tell that, do you know that these figures are not totally accurate and not 100% accurate?
I decline to answer since I never said 55%. It's 65%.
Okay, fine. You said 65% and 20% for financial liabilities, but do you know that the numbers are not really accurate?
Please, do you have any values to contradict what I'm saying? Any figures?
Well, I just want to tell you that it is inaccurate. That's why I asked you which source did you find this information from, and you didn't mention that.
This is
And also,
a well-known phenomenon happening in our francophone countries in Africa. We know that.
Which source states 65% and 25% for financial liability? Which source states 65% and 20% for financial liabilities?
Medium.com.
Medium.com.
Yes.
That is like a tabloid website to me. But then, okay, no problem. Basically, you also mentioned unfair trades. You said unfair trades. I wanted to ask which African countries and European countries have you give me an example of an unfair trade that is happening between African countries and then a European country.
Can you come again with your question?
Can you mention an unfair trade that is happening between an African country and an European country? Since you mentioned unfair trade as a reason for, or as a problem for stifling money from Africa. So can you give an example?
I've talked about the Ethiopia's Arabica coffee, like the exportation of the coffee products, where Africans are making just $4 and these European countries are making over $200. It's an example that I mentioned.
Okay, that's actually not an unfair trade, because recently the Nestle was voted one of the best producing companies and had awarded being one of the best income earners even in Africa. And basically it was recognized by the Western world as well. And also you mentioned France stifling
this company that is taking advantage of these products. They are taking advantage of this trade. So if they're taking advantage of it, what do you expect to be ahead of them?
They are not actually taking advantage of the trade. They are basically funding the trade, and there's an agreement. There's always an agreement of percentages between Western world and the African country, and if that percentage is agreed, I don't think it's termed as neocolonialism. It is to everyone's knowledge, agreed and signed. So I think throw that off board.
All right.
Also, you mentioned.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Unfortunately,
take advantage of these countries.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Elijah Gamson and Mr. Prince Boateng. Now we'll move over to our negative constructive, Mr. Elijah Gamson. Sir, you have 7 minutes. Kindly proceed with your submission.
All right. Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, fellow debaters, timekeeper, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elijah Gamson, and the motion before the House today is neocolonialism still exists in Africa, and I stand to oppose the motion. Resolve. Neocolonialism in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is defined as the economic and political policies by which a great power indirectly maintains or extends its influence over other areas or people, and sometimes does it without their agreement. And one, these are outline reasons why I want to put to forward that neocolonialism doesn't exist in Africa. And even if somebody says it exists, it is non-void, because it doesn't really exist. Now, the reasons being that one, for what has been kept in place to make sure that African countries usually do not even tell themselves that they're going to neocolonialism. Basically from colonization, when my fellow debater mentioned about Kwame Nkrumah making all those doubts and bad, which agreed. Now, situations and management and then corporations were kept in place to make sure that there's no stage or stiflement agreement between something we have as neocolonialism in Africa. And things that were put in place were one, foreign corporate behavior with particular focus on agribusiness and energy sector. And they also agreed on something we call the Western donor aid, including the UK initiative and the EU budget support, alongside so-called policy dialogue with aid recipients. And three, they also brought about the EU-African trade and development ties in relation to free market opening under economic partnership agreements. This explores the EU's use of aid as a sweetener to make sure that trades are being equal and not disadvantageous. And for the UN SDGs and donor policies surrounding private sector development to help with infrastructure in African economies, and also routes to enhance African agencies to confront neocolonialism with emphasis on Pan-African solutions, which was promoted first by Kwame Nkrumah and the Casablanca Group of States. Now, trade relations that happens between Africa and Asia, especially China, increase the prosperity of African countries. This is because they have been able to increase the value added of their exports and also of their export and also and be able to increase the value of their export and also being able to increase the value added. Moreover, in many African countries, China is not the most important trading partner at all. Most other Asian countries, especially India, said address Forge of Kiel Institute initiative are basically part of the reason why there's increasing growth in equal agreement and arrangement between African countries and then the Western world. The fixed costs are spread over a large export volume, which makes the individual products much cheaper, which goes in both ways between the Western world and African countries. African companies generate new knowledge about technologies and markets through the exchange with their Asian trading partners. And with more exports to Asia, imports from there also arise, which increases the productivity of African companies. All in all, the attractiveness of African export and their price competitiveness increases also for the rest of the world as well. Above all, relatively poor countries near the coast south of the Sahara, such as Nigeria, Tanzania, or Ethiopia, were able to benefit from the trade with Asia and work their way up the global value chain, said lead author Howard Tang, a professor who was stated in this initiative that happened in China. And however, Africa's greater integration into global value chains is not leading to an increase in the share of higher value activities in its export structure, so that the general population does not necessarily doesn't necessarily be disadvantageous of the development. Now, the cornerstone of the U.S. relations with Sub-Saharan African since the 2000s to 2015, there was something we call the African Growth and Opportunity Account, or which is called the AGOA. Now, the program offers more than 3,000 participants preferential access to U.S. markets by eliminating import tariffs. AGOA is a trade preference program established from 2000 up to date as part of a broader legislation to strengthen U.S. trade ties with Africa and the Caribbean enacted by President Bill Clinton. The act is unilateral, meaning that it does not require African countries to lower their own barriers to U.S. goods, though it encourages them to do so. President Clinton saw the policy as a way to boost growth and bolster democratic deals across all continents that were involved. The European Union has also signed an economic agreement with regional blocs in Western, Eastern, and Southern Africa, in which both sides offer preferential treatment on tariffs for certain goods. It has also been established interim trade partnership with countries, including Cameroon, Madagascar, Zimbabwe, and negotiations of other regional deals are underway to make sure that Africa and their Western world have agreements which negotiate and give them more deals in both ways, so that no one is disadvantaged at any cost. India has also expanded its presence in Sub-Saharan Africa as well. Its trade with the region saw a tenfold increase from 2015 up to date, reaching 51 billion, alongside surges in private investment in telecommunications, in information technologies, and energy, to make sure that Africa also benefit, which has helped in our recent development. If you check in the investment of India and China in our world today, and even as current as it is, because of the agreement and the good association they have with Western world, we've received the vaccines from India as well, which is boosting, which is mostly we haven't even paid for any, which is boosting the economic growth in the country, helping us to actually combat the COVID-19 virus. The EU is currently also negotiating a successor to its Cotonou Agreement of the year 2000, which started from 2000 with Africa and the Caribbean and the Pacific states. The political and economic context has changed enormously over the past 2 decades, with trade relations between the EU and the more developed countries now largely regulated by bilateral and regional economic partnership agreements. And in line with the international sustainability targets, social and environmental aspect must be taken into account in international treaties. While in the 2018, the African Union agreed to establish this country. So I believe we all have to understand that what it is one way 100%, 100% for each continent.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Elijah Gamson, for your submission. Now, for over to Mr. Prince Boateng, the affirmative constructive. You have 3 minutes to cross-examine your opponents.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Elijah, can you please, what do European Union budget support to African countries?
Again, I'll come again.
What do you mean by European Union budget support? How do you mean by budget support?
When we talk about European Union, when I mentioned from my context of European Union budget support, fine. So a budget support that maybe that has come from a continent, and probably let's say I give you a budget and then I ask you that, okay, this is what I want us to agree on because this is what I have and this is what you have. Now the question is that it is up to you to come into terms and agreement with what I provide and something you have to bring to the table. So the question is that I come with you with a budget. Do you agree or not? I don't force it on you. You are the leader of a continent, of a country. So what you need to do is that you need to come into agreement with a budget. Yes, it's an EU budget. It's African Union that is there to also look at the budget and this is what they can provide.
Are you very much aware that these budgets come with their own terms of conditions?
Good. Every budget,
which things they ask you to implement those monies into.
Yeah, basically, of course, every budget comes with their terms and conditions, but it's up to the other party to agree or disagree.
You mentioned European Union African trade. Please, can you give us an example of any African trade?
There are a lot of African trades. Do you want me to give you an example of an European Union African trade, or you just want an example of an African trade?
European Union African trade.
An European Union African trade?
Yes.
If you want an European Union African trade, can you see the World Trade Fair Center that's happening right now?
No, you seem to be dodging my question. Okay, please give me evidence or values that seems to suggest that there has been growth or growth in the productivity of African companies as a result of these cooperations that they have with European countries.
Okay, when you look from the what we call the ec.europa.eu, there's in 2019, almost 70% of goods were exported from EU to Africa, which were manufactured goods. And Africa definitely exported about 65% of those goods were exported from Africa to the United Nations as raw material, which was an agreement between most African countries and then the EU. That was a forth and back, where each and every one person definitely had a benefit, their own share of benefit from that trade. This happened in 2019.
The export of these products.
Unfortunately, our time is up. Thank you so much, contestants, for both of your constructives on the resolution before the House today. We'll go on a short break. Kindly send messages to our Facebook page at NUGS-RUSSIA, as well as to our WhatsApp group page. You can find the link to this page on our Facebook page. Thank you.
Hello, Miss Melanie. Can you please hear us? Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
can-
I can hear you.
But what happened? Because I've got all my devices and nothing's happened.
I don't know.
Because I've never had problem ever with Zoom. So I'm just shocked. Have they started already?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first part.
I've missed the first bit, so is there any point then? Hello?
Hello, Miss Melanie.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yes, we're done with the constructors on the motion. We'll be proceeding after the break to the rebuttals.
So why is it that I couldn't get to hear you?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, but I think it would have something to do with your device. Because
What? Both of them? Because I've never had a problem before, ever. So I'm shocked,
sorry.
you know?
Yeah.
I've-
So sorry about that.
I'm very annoyed actually because I haven't heard anything. So how would I know to judge? Because it wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh well. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. So after the break, we'll proceed with the rebuttals, and then we'll take it from there, please.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best.
Can we first decide on how we are going to judge this part? Because honestly, I don't know as well.
Yeah. It's very, very, I'm very upset. Can you tell me roughly what the arguments were? What they said roughly for in about a minute, each one, and who am I judging? Because I don't have any of the information right now.
Okay, so the contest is between Mr. Prince Boateng, who is for the motion. Yes.
Affirmative, yeah?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Elijah Gamson is the opponent.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes, and again, as the topic reads,
neocolonialism still exists in Africa.
Yes.
So what did Prince say?
Quite a lot. I think our primary judge would be the very best to fill you in, but some quotes were made, particularly also from Prince, and then some policy trade agreements were also brought out by Mr. Elijah Gamson. But
right.
Yes, I believe Mr. Anthony Yabwa could fill you in on the things, as well as Dr. Abdul Amial could fill you in on the things that were said.
Yeah.
But
are they online now? Where
yes,
are they?
yes, please. Yes, but then the break is over, and then we'll be resuming the airing of the debate now.
Oh, okay. All right. So.
Yes. So,
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. I don't know. Very upset. All right. Thank you. I'll start editing.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay. Can you still hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can
Yes, please,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
Okay, so are they on or what's happening? Because they're coming back. What? How long?
Just in a few seconds, in about 15 seconds.
Okay. All right. My hand. Oh gosh, I need to take that hand down. Lower hand. Yeah. So who's coming on now?
Samura, she'll be presenting. She'll take up the rebuttals.
Okay. Rebuttals. Yeah. Thank you.
Listeners, welcome back from the break. This is the contest of the third and fourth places of the Kwame Nkrumah International Debate Competition. This evening, the resolution before the House reads as, Neocolonialism still exists in Africa. So we move straight to rebuttals. For the motion, we have Prince Boateng, and against the motion, we have Elijah Gamson. Affirmative rebuttal, you have 4 minutes. Kindly go ahead with your submission. Mr. Prince Boateng, you may start. Hello, Mr. Prince.
Yeah, hello. Sorry for the delay. Thank you very much. So resolved. Panel of judges, when my co-debater was making his submission, he made mention of the fact that African countries are not paying for the vaccines that they are receiving from the Gavi facility. And I say this is not entirely true. Since these vaccines, after they've been deployed to the African countries, these African countries pay for the cost of the distribution of the vaccine to the remotest parts of their countries. They also pay for the cost of the storage and everything that comes with it. Again, he also said that exports from European Union has also increased productivity in African countries, and I beg to differ, since these exports from European countries are rather deepening the dependence of African countries on these countries. And as I said earlier, these trade deals are a device for entrenching neocolonialism. Panel of judges. Africa is full of potential in terms of renewable natural resources that the West always wants to exploit. Marquette is a journalist, released a report in the Britain Scramble for Africa's Energy and Mineral Resource. He talks about how British companies have mining operations in 37 sub-Saharan African countries. They collectively control over $1 trillion worth of Africa's most valuable resources. In fact, records from the London Stock Exchange show that 101 British companies have mining operations in 37 sub-Saharan African countries, and they collectively control over $1 trillion worth of African most valuable resources. And this corroborates the report by this investigative journalist, Mark Curtis. Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, British gold companies like the Acacia Mining and One Gold Resources control 12.5 million ounces of gold. Mining companies such as Anglo-American and Petra Diamonds produce more than one third of the world's diamonds. Platinum is also concentrated in South Africa and mainly controlled by Anglo-American and Jubilee Platinum. There are obviously other Western companies that invest in Africa's natural resources, but the corporations above are the main ones that should be taken into account. The crucial fact is that under the guise of helping Africa in its economic development, it is instead a continuation of the colonial narrative. It is widely known that many children, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo, are forced to work in dangerous mines with little or no pay. Some of them die from tunnel collapses or suffer from injuries. And I'm sure we all saw some videos of children in Congo who were mining in very unfavorable conditions. Panel of judges, many tech giants like Google, Apple, Dell, Glencore, and Microsoft should be held accountable. And there is a lot of evidence to the effect that these companies are aware that the cobalt they use in their product is sourced by child labor, but they are clearly not doing anything enough to stop this unfair treatment of our children in Africa and exploitation of African countries. Panel of judges, according to the infra.ru, an article by the Institute of African Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences, a portion of the article reads, neocolonialism in the past century as a special form of expansion of developed countries to African countries included the whole arsenal of specific methods of political and economic manipulation. These methods include the planting of corruption and outright bribery of African political elites, uncontrolled arms political favorites, the system of bonded loans, the use of so-called humanitarian aid as a tool of manipulation, the use of armed force, allegedly in the name of maintenance of peace, and the use of inciting tribalist conflict just to transfer state.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Prince Boateng. So next is the negative rebuttal. Mr. Elijah, you have 6 minutes. Kindly go ahead with your final submission.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, panel of judges. From my co-debater, he initially mentioned that France are stifling money from Francophone African countries. And then he spoke about a 65%, 20% financial liability that France actually gains or gets from Francophone countries, which is stifling their economy, and then which is making their economy to grow to dwindle. And I hereby rebut that fact because when you look at the economic partnership between Africa and France, which has long been present in the economic landscape of many of the continent's countries, is growing pace with a strong growth in African countries. Since the early 2000s, foreign direct investment in Africa has grown faster than anywhere else in the world. France has been a player in this general trend. They have been a great player in this general trend by diversifying the countries and sectors it invests in. France also benefits from a compact and extensive network of subsidiaries, which generates many investments in countries where they are present. In order to enhance their presence, French companies are investing heavily in Africa. The latest FDI stocks and flows on the African continent indicate an increased French presence, keen to participate over the long terms in the trend emerging in Africa. And basically, they have basically given the least. They're basically giving more visas to many Francophone countries into France than even what most other countries give the Anglophone countries, the Anglophone African countries, because it's much easier. That's the benefit they get. And mostly what happens is that France has actually given a lot of benefit to Africa and the Francophone countries. Now, to cite an example, Africa has gained tenfold increase between 2000 and 2017. That they are the third largest FDI stock after the United Kingdom and the United States. There are 30% FDI destined for North Africa, including 20% for Morocco. Their growing investment in Sub-Saharan Africa is up to 6% points between 2014 and 2017. The main beneficiary in East Africa is the Portuguese-speaking Angola, which has received 8.7 billion in French investment, followed by Nigeria with nearly 8.6 billion. French investment stock in South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal totals to $2.5 billion, 2.5 billion pounds to 2.5 billion euros, 2.3 billion euros, and then 2.1 billion euros respectively. Kenya and Burkina Faso are also countries with the largest growth in French foreign direct investment, which is up to 57 and 21% respectively. And this increasingly grows as they actually invest in Africa. Even our China demand for ivory, as they say, China demands for African ivory, abalone, rice, stacks, and materials from other endangered species. But that's not the case, because China is often lambasted with nefarious actor in its African dealings. But it's evident that is a more complicated story than that. My co-debater also spoke about EU, the European countries stifling money from Africa, and then we not actually gaining what exactly what we're supposed to gain because of the EU and the bond we have with them. And I want him to know that methods has actually been kept in place in Africa to stop neocolonialism, to solve it, because we do this through use of foreign aids and loans, which is basically an agreement between two countries. I want to tell my co-debater that he shouldn't confuse the statement of colonialism and neocolonialism. There are two different words and two different explanations and definitions. Because when you go through the use of foreign aids and loans, when you use multinational corporations, when you create economic dependencies, which comes with agreement, when you provide tools, when you create what we call the true interference in the internal state of new states, whereby you come into agreement with Western worlds to actually have a mutual understanding agreement between two countries. I don't see it as neocolonialism. It's just up to the African leaders and then the mentality. He speaks about Angola being used as labor people. The question is their own country people that are actually using them as labor and not the Western world? I don't think any Western world country is going to pressure an African president to actually go down on his own members. It's actually up to them. And I think it's their cultural basis and not because of neocolonialism. That's something different. So basically, I want to depict the fact that this argument of neocolonialism being still exists in Africa is rebellious and it's been lambasted. When you look at the growth that China has actually invested in the agricultural investment, it's far more modest and reported, and is even welcomed by Africans. Africans actually have supported the economic transformation from China and India. And my co-debater spoke about me speaking about saying that the vaccines, I didn't say that the vaccines, you don't buy the syringes and African leaders don't pay for the distribution. I'm saying that the vaccines that delivered to most African countries have been done on a loan basis, which have not literally been paid for. So in view of this, I want you to know that other arguments have come in place, and I want you to know that in view of this argument, we have no other judgment but to agree to the fact that we all go against the motion that neocolonialism still exists in Africa. And with this, as I listed, with a foreign corporate behavior, with particular focus on agribusiness and energy sector, we can actually achieve that. And with true supply of through use of foreign aid and loans, it's not a neo-colonialism basis. When we use true multinational corporations comes in agreement, which as a result of what a solid background for mutual understanding, that is not neo-colonialism. And also the point I raised that what rules to enhance African agency to confront neo-colonialism with emphasis on Pan-African solutions, which was started by Nkrumah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Elijah. So now in the affirmative, you have 3 minutes to finally seal your argument. Mr. Prince, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Resolved. Panel of judges. My co-debater fails to provide concrete evidence to support the claims that he is making. He's only here to share his opinions and he's not being factual about the whole thing. When you say investments, what do you mean by investments and to what end? I've already made it clear from the outset that we should understand neocolonialism from the perspective of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who first coined the word neocolonialism. And these foreign trades you talk about from these European countries and the Western countries, they are their devices to deepen the dependence of African countries on them. They are devices to entrench neocolonialism. So, Mr. Chairman, let's look at eco currency. If Africans did not realize the effects of neocolonialism, I don't think there will be efforts made to make sure that all African countries enjoy eco currency. Even that the Francophone countries were struggling to liberate themselves from their colonial masters. Panel of judges. The struggle against neocolonialism is not aimed at excluding the capital of the developed world from operating in less developed countries. And I want to make this very clear. It is aimed at preventing the financial power of the developed countries being used in such a way as to impoverish the less developed. I think we should be thankful to Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who made the scales fall off the eyes of African countries to become conscious of the effects of these and then arouse interest among people of like minds to crush the head of that evil monster of neocolonialism. He said at the Nationalist Conference of African Freedom Fighters in 1962, and I quote, "This meeting gives us the opportunity always to review our strength as well as that of the enemy and to reorganize our forces and our strategy." Who is the enemy? The enemy is imperialism, who uses its weapons, colonialism and neocolonialism. Mr. Chairman, we should also be thankful that now in our current dispensation, we have somebody like Ghana's President Akufo-Addo, who is championing the cause of Africa Beyond Aid from the inspiration of Ghana Beyond Aid, because they have seen the effects of neocolonialism on African countries, and is now spurring African people on to invest in their own and take their destiny into their own hands and develop their countries themselves, rather than depending on aids and then handouts from these colonial masters. Panel of judges, our guest audience, I therefore entreat all of us listening to make the conscious effort to stop playing the enticing sweet music composed by this monster before we think further. Thank you all very much.
Thank you to Mr. Prince Boateng. Thank you very much, both contestants. Ladies and gentlemen, we will again go on a short break. When we come back, our judges will give us their results. Both contestants came out strong this evening. I can't wait to hear what our judges have for us. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Smells of weed.
Oh, shit. Rebuttal. Oh, God. Oh, this thing today.
Okay, welcome back from the break. Yes, before we go to our judges for their scorecards, we want to engage our contestants in a bit of some questioning. So let me start with Mr. Prince Boateng. Mr. Prince Boateng, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, by grace.
Okay, it's good to hear you're doing great. How did you find the contest?
Actually, yeah, my co-debater also did well.
Amazing, amazing. Let me say, with a topic, was it a difficult topic to research on? Something like neocolonialism, because you must have done lots of research to come up here.
Yes, a lot of research went into that, but I think it's not a difficult topic at all. Yeah.
Okay. And then let me ask you one question for me. Do you sincerely believe that neocolonialism still exists in Africa?
Honestly, before this debate, I thought it did it, but actually, I'm convinced that it still exists. That's why, like you heard me make reference to the fact that now Africa is beginning to make efforts to liberate themselves of this form of new slavery. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me rephrase one of your quotes when I was listening to your submissions. You said, Africa has the potential to become the richest continent in the world, but then unfortunately, bribery, corruption, and bureaucracy, amongst others, have crippled its growth. So that's resonates very well with me. I totally believe in that statement, and thank you very much. Now, over to Mr. Elijah Gamson. Elijah, how are you doing? Mr. Elijah Gamson, can you hear me? Hello, Elijah. Elijah, if you can hear me, kindly turn off your microphone, turn on your microphone. Okay, I think Mr. Elijah Gamson is having a bit of technical issues with his connection. We'll ask the administrators to check on him. Yes. Kindly spare us a couple of minutes and let's get Elijah on board to also hear his answers to the questions we would ask. Thank you. Mr. Elijah Gamson, can you hear us? Okay. Unfortunately, we're not able to connect with Mr. Elijah Gamson, the proponent of today's motion. All right. Therefore, since Prince is the only one present, I would my co-presenter would want to ask him just a couple of questions, and then the judges will take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Prince, how do you think you performed this evening?
Okay, when I assess myself, I think I did extremely well. The presentation of facts, and then, yeah, I was factual, and then, yeah, convincing. So I did extremely well, but I do not acquit myself. I'm waiting for the judges' opinion or decision.
Okay, and what do you think? Would you have done better if you were for the other side of the motion? That's if you were against the motion, not for the motion.
I said this earlier. Yeah, initially before this debate, I always thought that Africa was already doing well, and then there was nothing like the whites or the West people having any control over it. But I was convinced during my research towards this debate. So I think I'll still debate for the motion any day, anytime, unless, of course, we change the narrative.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Prince.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much once again to our contestants. Both of you were very calm, and your flow and delivery were amazing. We'll go straight to the judges for the results, and we'll begin with our primary judge, Mr. Anthony Kunedu-Yeboah. Please, sir, if you're ready.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I think today has also been a good and exciting context we've had so far. And I think our contestants so far have learned a lot. And it looks like they have listened to advices from day one till now, especially Elijah. Well, without wasting my time, I think I just have to go straight by giving the performances of what each person did. I think Prince did very well. Actually, both of them did very well. Prince did extremely well, gave a good presentation, good questioning on cross-examination, and also on his answering as well. Overall, he did very, very well and gave a very calm and a very good presentation overall. But I awarded him 7/10 for that. And when it comes to Elijah, I think Elijah has a very potential and is a very good debater. And he listened to advice this time round, other than like his previous contest. I think he rushed, he was talking, and I think the judges, we really couldn't get his point very clear. But this time around, he was calm, gave out his point very clear, and everything about Elijah today was just perfect. His course of examination, the beginning of presentation to the end. Overall, he did extremely well. So for that, I awarded him 8.5/10. So that is this for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Anthony Kunedi-Yeboah, our primary judge. We'll move over to Miss Melanie Richard-Starker. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate you didn't hear the first part, but we'll still need to hear your judgment. Thank you.
Yeah, my apologies for that. Yes, that failure. However, I thought the rebuttals were really good. I know it's not my place to judge them, but from the arguments that I heard from Prince, he was very, very convincing. He uses his data a lot, and he drew up on up-to-date research. His presentation for me was clear. He's, kind of slowed down instead of trying to pack everything in one go. I felt that it was a good pace. So for both, I gave them both 9/10 for each of those things. I thought that was the only fair way to go. I felt that Elijah also presented really clearly, and it was well paced as well. And he also, for me, he presented some arguments which I felt were questionable. However, he did well to back it up. So even though it might not have been my opinion or sound opinion, he still backed it up. So I think they did really well, both of them. So they both drew, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Melanie Richard-Starker, for your judgment.
You're welcome.
We'll move over to Mr. Kobe Quinu Kojo Edwan, our judge. Please, sir, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening to all. And I would like to start by congratulating both contestants. They did wonderfully well. So I'll start by Mr. Prince Boateng. Mr. Prince did very well in his arguments, in his submission. Yeah, he was able to give out his points very well in stipulated time. And he was able to make convincing arguments. But when it came to his supporting arguments after being cross-examined, I think he wasn't able to find himself getting back to track to be able to debate it on the questions that he was asked by his co-debater. So for his arguments, I gave him 8, and his supporting arguments, I gave him 6. So for overall, he has 14. Then for Elijah, Elijah gave a very solid argument. You could realize that some of the statistics that he was given, he was given them based on recent statistical provisions. And in his supporting arguments, when he was asked his questions, I realized that he took the opportunity to counter what he wasn't able to finish. In answering them, he comes back to where he wasn't able to complete. to fill up that gap over there. So I gave him 7 over there. So in total, he had 16 points. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kobe Kwenu Kojo Edwin.
Please, the name is Adium.
Edwin, sorry.
Adium. Adium.
Adium.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr.
Welcome.
Adium. Okay. Okay, we'll go to our policy judge 2, Mr. Patrick J.A. Populampu Dove. Sir, can you kindly put for your submissions?
All right, thank you very much, and I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
So moving on to the affirmative, I think as all my fellow judges have rightly indicated, they all did well. I think if there are any lessons in the past that needed to be learned, I think they probably may have taken their lessons quite seriously. That notwithstanding, every debate has its own peculiarities, and this happens to be one. So without much ado, I'd like to go straight to the point. So taking the affirmative speaker, with regards to his affirmative construction, I gave him 17 out of 20. With regards to his cross-examination, I awarded him 2 out of 4. His first argumentative rebuttal, I awarded him 9 out of 12. And his conclusions, I give him 6 out of 7. Regarding organization and clarity, he had only 1 point from me out of 2. The use of argument, 0.5 out of 1. The use of cross-examination, 1 out of 1. And his presentation style, I awarded him 2.5 out of 3. Now, the reasons why I give him the following marks are as follows. I believe that he generally did a good job, and he gave us good examples. He was able to give us detailed explanation, definitions as to what neocolonialism is. However, I felt he spent so much time on explaining to us what neocolonialism is rather than, being argumentative. So that reduced this point a bit at the affirmative construction aspect. And I thought he also was, yes, we all know that Kwame Nkrumah happens to be more like the founder of the word or the term neocolonialism. But I thought after Kwame Nkrumah, there has been lots of scenarios that people have also played to the tune of neocolonialism, and I thought he could have mentioned a few other people, and I felt his argument was solely, or his reference point as far as neocolonialism, as far as a person is concerned, was only to Kwame Nkrumah, and I think that scored him down a bit. One other point is that, with this kind of Lincoln Douglas debate, you have limited time, right? So you wouldn't want to spend so much on the salutations. I felt he constantly kept on repeating, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, and I thought one way or the other that went against him as far as time is concerned. So he had limited time, and if you realize, you can see that he wasn't able to finish all his points in the affirmative construction. With regards to the cross-examination, I think he was allowing his opponent to dictate the pace at one point in time. He wasn't clear on his on making his points, especially when the opponent chose one point or a factor on him. So at that angle, I think I ended up giving him 2 out of 4. With a summary, the conclusion, he mentioned a point around Congo, indicating that children are in hard labor, mining, and all this stuff. I felt he could have given us more details as far as reference is concerned. He left it hanging there, and I thought he could have referenced us as to where he's getting that information from. So above all, when you look at the additional points, as I've already indicated, organization and clarity, I give him 1 out of 2. I felt he could have used the arguments more, so he had 0.5 from my end. Use of cross-examination, I think he did what he could. I give him 1. And overall, the presentation style, as my other judges have indicated, I think both of them, did their best, and I give him 2.5 out of 3. So overall, for me, he had 39 out of 50. Now to the speaker on the negative side, I felt, first of all, let me go through his scores. Negative construction, I awarded him 19 out of 21. Cross-examination, I awarded him 3 out of 4. Negative rebuttals, I give him 16 out of 18. Organization and clarity, he had 1 out of 2. Use of arguments, he had 1 out of 1. Use of cross-examination, 1 out of 1. And the presentation style, I give him 2.5 out of 3 as well. Regarding his points, or things that he did well and things that he needs improvement, I think overall he gave a splendid performance. I overheard our primary judge, Mr. Konedu, indicating that he has got to do with debates, and then I think I agree with him. I think he was able to clearly indicate his points. He took his time. His points were very clear. He was argumentative enough. He was able to take all the points one by one and wasn't repeating some of the little errors. For example, the constant addressing of the panel of judges and etc. He didn't spend so much time explaining to us what neocolonialism is. I think he went straight to the point. He said the most important thing as far as neocolonialism is concerned, and went straight to the point to make his argument. However, one thing that I wasn't so satisfied was that his main points were basically on trade. And I felt neocolonialism affects us, has an impact in every sphere of life. And I thought he could have spread his, he could have widened the scope as far as research is concerned. So he was mainly talking about trade, economics. I know my fellow policy judge would be happy about that, but I felt he could have given us more insights to other sectors, which he didn't, which I think the affirmative speaker did quite better on that angle. And I also think with regards to his fluidity, he kept on asking, in making his point, I probably is this kind of mannerism, but he kept on asking that, for example, what do you see? He said what, etc. Like kind of asking what, and I felt it also affected the fluidity of his speech. So probably in the near future, whenever debating or public speaking, he may want to check that. I think the constant questioning probably may not sit well with some people. However, overall, he made valid points, as I've already indicated. I think the cross-examination as well, he was able to handle it quite well. I scored him 3 points out of 4, because I felt that the affirmative speaker in the cross-examination was more, in as much as the affirmative speaker got him on one aspect where I think he asked about examples and he tried being smart. I think overall, most of the questions posed to him was rather, making his points quite stronger, and I think I ended up scoring him more. For his final rebuttals, I think he was able to handle each point raised by the affirmative and was able to give rebutting points that, kept on making his case stronger. And out of that, I give him 16 out of 18. Overall, he had 43.5 from my end as far as the scores are concerned. So, Mr. Chairman, this is what I have for my end. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. A very big thank you to Mr. Patrick Pokulampudu for your judgment. Then we'll let Dr. Abdul Kader Ameyao, our policy judge one, crown it all. Sir, may we hear the judgments, please?
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity once again. And yeah, actually, I'm going to take it from a different perspective, since our policy judge one has already talked about, some of the things I was already going to talk about, and I share the same views as well. So with regards to the scores, so I'm going to start with Prince, and I awarded 15/20 for the affirmative construction for a few reasons. Yes, I do agree that his arguments were clearer because clear. However, I felt that, a lot of the points that he made were a bit questionable. He based his argument more on economic colonialism. Actually, he talked about bribery. Again, when you talk about bribery, how? Because it felt more like he was just mentioning those points without really elaborating or without really explaining how they connect, to the arguments that he wants to make. Because the thing about debate is not about mentioning so many points. It's actually about how you can, express your opinion in a way that it might connect that point, and you can actually you can actually clearly state your opinion by using the point you've made earlier on. If you just say bribery just like that, okay, what is the connection here? How does bribery lead to, neocolonialism? Like, what is the connection? So if you actually look at my score sheet, I've written questions like, how is it connected? So I couldn't really, feel that. Also, he talked about, countries in Africa, for example, living 65%, like former Francophone colonies having 65% of their national reserve in France. Actually, that is factually incorrect. The number is 50%. And you have to understand the reasoning behind that. And so before you actually move on to actually criticize the policy, you have to understand, the reasoning behind the policy. And I'm pretty sure he knows that. The reasoning behind the policy was that, when France actually left, one of the things they did was that they wanted to kind of more or less protect, former colonies in terms of their currency and their national reserve, because we do know how inflation works in Africa. In many countries actually are not able to really stabilize their economies. And so by having the same currency as France and having a reserve of 50%, they're more or less safer in some way, because the risk factor actually goes down when you have a reserve like that in in an economy that is much stronger than yours. However, in 1999, when the European Union actually adopted a common currency that is a euro, then questions were asked as to whether it really makes any sense to actually even have that 50% of your national reserve in France. And so if your argument was more based on that, then we could have understood what you meant. That, okay, what about after 1999? Why do we still keep our money there? And why aren't these countries putting up policies that would actually say, we are not going to put our monies there anymore? We are a sovereign country, and we don't want to keep our our reserves in France anymore, because the main goal of signing that agreement to have 50% of of your national reserve or your currency reserve in France does not apply anymore, because France themselves do not actually spend the franc anymore. And so this is something that you could have actually talked about in terms of trying to make your argument. You also talked about things about slavery and child labor and exploitation. So this is really my area. So I want to make a few things clear just for all of us to learn something. The point is this: yes, there is child labor, there is exploitation of natural resources, there are all of that. But one thing we got to understand is that when any multinational company decides to invest abroad, there are four ways, or there are four reasons, four core fundamental reasons. And in international business, we call them market seeking, which means that this company actually wants to have access to the market in a foreign country. They can actually go for what we call resource seeking, which means in this case, there are some resources that are available in other countries which they want to have access to. So and that happens quite often in Africa, not just, and not only in Africa, actually, it happens also in Latin America, for example. It happens in Asia as well. So it's not only just in Africa, but then again, remember that these are multinational companies. And so the fact that you have resources in your country, where multinational companies that are actually seeking resources come to your country because of that, does not mean that you're being colonized. And if you see it as being colonized, then it means that you have to take what we call the institutional approach to protect your resources. And so by not doing that, as a sovereign country, you cannot blame multinational enterprises for actually colonizing you, when indeed they are there, of course, for the resources, because that's exactly what the investment is. And they did sign contracts. And besides, you are not forced to allow multinational companies in your country. We're in 2021. There are protective mechanisms that any country can actually put in place. And so you cannot actually blame multinational enterprises for doing that. So if they come for resource seeking, it's up to you to actually kind of put in policies that can protect you, that can actually bring out the best interests. But then again, it comes back to leadership. We know African leaders would go for their interests, go for 10%, 5% stake in that company, and then give out all the resources. You cannot blame them as colonialism here. You got to blame the leaders of your country. And so I couldn't really get that connection, in that perspective. Now, when we go to the rebuttal, to be honest with you, when you did the rebuttal, I felt that when you started, actually, let me begin with when you started asking the questions. I felt that you just gave out like 3 points to your opponent, because you asked questions that actually allowed him to really lecture you. And that is not what you're supposed to do. You were supposed to actually ask yes or no questions that will pinch holes into the arguments he's made. But guess what you did? You asked open questions and he took the advantage of it and he just lectured you, tried to even make more points, give more examples to solidify the arguments that he's already made. And when you were asked questions about facts, you say you're not going to answer them. And again, those facts came back to actually bite you, because you could have said, oh, I'm very sorry, I said 65%, but I'm wrong, it's 50%. You could have corrected that, but you said, I'm not going to answer that. And so I couldn't really award anything more than a 1/4. And so I awarded 1/4. Now, again, coming back to your argument, you came back using, again, FDI, the same point. And for me, I just still kept asking the questions, what is the role of institutions? What are the role of stakeholders? In international business and strategy, we talk about something called the Stakeholder Theory. And so who are stakeholders? Anybody or any institution that is actually affected by the activities of the firm. And so if Apple is actually seeking natural resources in Africa, and you think that there is child labor, what can people do? What should government do? What should people who buy the phones do? These are all the things they can do. And why are they not doing anything? So that is the question here. Why is nobody? I mean, you are here talking about this now. You know what you could do? You could boycott Apple products. Why is nobody doing that? If we really, really think that is so bad, and Apple is actually colonizing per your arguments, then why don't we have that? And so again, to me, it wasn't really strong arguments, but maybe because I know too much about the economic perspective of it, and maybe I'm a bit biased, in this perspective, but I just couldn't stop asking these questions as you kept, talking. But I gave 9/12 because I understand, of course, you are going to be a doctor, you're not an economist. So I don't expect you to really know the details, of all of these. But so I awarded 9/12, which I think is quite decent. I awarded 5/7 for your rejoinder, and then 1/2 for organization and clarity, 1/1 for use of argument, 1/1 for cross-examination, and then presentation style 2/3. So overall, Prince had 35/50. So now I'm going to go to the negative, which is Elijah. So I think Elijah has really, really improved, because I remember the first debate, I could barely understand what he was talking about, because he just rushed through them. And today he could not finish, but again, he was very clear. So I could really understand it. And like Patrick said, I like the perspective that he took more or less the FDI approach to it, which I thought was the safest way to actually go by this, because you could choose more like the economic approach, or you could choose a political approach. But a political approach, in my view, is much riskier, because then the questions that probably I believe Prince will start asking is, okay, what is the role of government? Why do you think that so I felt like Elijah probably thought about that, and so he tried to avoid that. Patrick didn't like it, but I thought it was a smart way to actually go about it. And so I liked it. I awarded 18/21. Again, like I already said, he was able to ask the right questions, and he answered the questions well. So I awarded 3/4 for the cross-examination. Also, in terms of negative rejoinder, I like the fact that he used facts and then he quoted his sources, because some of the sources he quoted, I checked them whilst he was talking, and they tend to be right and they tend to be true. And so again, more or less the FDI focus that he talked about. And so I awarded 16 over 18. However, I also felt that in a way, Elijah also kind of made some points which actually made it seem like, okay, if you have foreign firms in your company, then there is no way, absolutely no way that it can be regarded as neocolonialism. But then again, it depends on the definition or your definition, or I would say even in a perspective more like a subjective, definition of what colonialism is actually about. And so can people ask questions like, because right now, actually in international business, we look at something called the role of politics and soft power, using FDI as a role of politics and soft power. And one of the things we see of late is China using that. And so China comes to economy. Let me give you an example. An example is this country, Zambia, right? I believe you all know this. So China actually invests in Zambia. And then after some time, they tell them, you know what, we want our money back. Zambia says, we cannot give you the money. So what does China do? Okay, then you got to lease something to us. So you're going to lease your airport to us. You're going to lease your seaports to us for the next 99 years. And imagine one of the biggest sources of income that you have has been leased to a foreign company. And so technically, your economy has been crippled. So it doesn't mean that even investments are all goody-goody. Actually, they are not. But Elijah makes it seem that is all good. Actually, it's not. And so that's also something that you could also think about in terms of, the role. Actually, there was another research that was made that looked at how China actually invests in Africa. And the findings were that these findings were actually by Harvard Business School. And the findings were that any country that actually, sides with China at the UN General Assembly during the voting receives more investment. And if a country does not vote, with China, does not side with China at the UN General Assembly, normally they receive 3 times less investment. And so you could see that even investments are being used as a way to kind of colonize. In the way kind of colonize, you kind of force African countries to, really kind of go the way that China actually wants them to go. So again, you could argue that. And actually, I was expecting that, not from Elijah, of course, from Prince, to use those arguments. And I didn't hear that. And I was a bit disappointed, but it's okay. We are all in to learn something. And so with organization and clarity, I awarded 1 over 2 for Elijah, 1 over 1 for use of arguments, 1 over 1 cross-examination rebuttal, and then 2 over 3 for presentation style. And so Elijah had 42 over 50 from my side. And so would you guys want me to go ahead and announce the score, or would you take over, MC?
Please, you may, Dr. Abdul Kader.
Okay, sure. All right, so basically the score we have now, so I'm going to start with the 4th place. So I think obviously, putting the scores together, Prince Boateng had 113 over 150, which means that, you had a 4th place. And of course, it's not bad because, we've come a long way. And the most important thing is you have improved, because I also heard your first debate, and definitely today was a bit better than the previous debate. And I think it's a great experience. We've all learned something, so you shouldn't be disappointed. Actually, you should be really proud of yourself for doing great. And then Elijah had 128 over 150, so who is a winner today, and also the 3rd place of the competition. So congratulations, gentlemen. You've done an amazing job, and hopefully we can see you guys again next year. So I'm going to hand over back to the studio.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Kader Ameyao, our Policy Judge 1, for your inputs, your extensive knowledge, particularly in the area of economics. No wonder you hold a PhD degree in that area. Thank you. Contestants, you both delivered exceptionally. I, for one, believe you're very awesome in your delivery and submissions. And thank you so much for gracing our platform with such great research, agility, flow, and insight. We're proud of you. We're proud of your achievements in this competition. And we sincerely have no doubt that you continue to excel in all endeavors you undertake. Good luck to you. So ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's Kwame Nkrumah International Debate Competition. Thank you to everyone for joining today's wonderful contest. It was a beautiful contest of immense research know-how and graceful opposition from our contestants with their marvelous and amazing views.
To our judges, we are grateful that you made this much time. We appreciate indeed. Thank you very much and God bless you.
Lovely listeners, the final comes off tomorrow, Saturday, the 13th of March, 2021, 8 p.m. Moscow time, between Miss Nanama Popo Soni and Miss Amadou Fie Opare. Trust me on this, it's gonna be amazing, heated, and very insightful. You don't want to miss it. Invite more Pan-Africanists to join us again tomorrow for the finals. Have an amazing evening, and thank you all for joining us. God bless you all.